Here we are back in lesson 1.27. And during the last class, I talked about the different means you can employ to develop your fluency, to become more accustomed to speaking this language that you're learning. I talked about the importance of giving extended responses to questions asked of you in the lessons of the ULAT. I also mentioned the importance of simulating conversation, speaking as though you're actually engaged in conversation with another person who's present with you. And I didn't mention this, but also it's very important to speak out loud. In that fashion, you can be checking your pronunciation, and you're developing the muscles that are necessary to speak the particular sounds, to pronounce the particular sounds that are pertinent to the language that you're learning. So in the next to last lesson, you undoubtedly practice this in the course of the last class, but the next to last lesson is very important. You're forming questions, and these questions deal with the topics about which you spoke when you described the day in the life of the gentleman in lesson 1.27. These questions, or the ability to form these questions, really simulates what it's like to be on the one end of a conversation when you're actually going back and forth, sharing information with another person. You must be able to form a question so that you don't become a passive conversationalist, only responding to questions asked of you about yourself. So again, you're going to want to focus on the next to last lesson in particular, the next to last section of the lesson in particular as you're forming questions. But I want to talk in particular today, really focus on the last section. I mentioned yesterday about the importance of not just giving the minimal response regarding answers to the questions that are posed of you, but to digress a bit or to expand upon the responses. And very importantly, I talked about the skill, developing the skill of talking around those gaps in your knowledge, of finding ways to get your ideas across when you still lack some of the vocabulary you wish you had to go directly to the comment you want to make. So we're going to take a look. I'll just give you some examples here. At the third question, and we'll do several questions of this nature, you could simply respond to this question, which would be haces mucha tarea, with sí, hago mucha tarea, or no hago mucha tarea. But why not expand on it a little bit more? You're here not just to perform the minimum, you're here to try and develop your fluency. And so you could say something along the lines of, sí, hago mucha tarea. You don't necessarily teacher yet, so you could say, él or ella da mucha tarea en la escuela. Me gusta mirar la televisión. Me gusta escuchar música. Me gusta hablar con la familia. All those are words that you know up to this point. You don't know the word however or but, which you'd like to be able to say here, yo tengo mucha tarea. Okay, so that's how to expand upon the very simple response you could give. Or like in number 4 here, the question is, escuchas música? And you could of course say, sí, escucho música, or no escucho música, and move on to the next question. But if your goal is really to develop fluency, extend that response and say, sí, me gusta música. Escucho la radio, escucho música rock, no escucho música clásica, no me gusta música clásica. You don't know how to say to play an instrument yet. So that's probably, maybe is off the top of my head as far as you can go with this conversation, but it's much more thorough than a single sentence response. Number 5 here, lavas la ropa. Lavas la ropa, ¿verdad? And you'd say, no lavo la ropa. Mamá lava la ropa, o papá lava la ropa. Yo hago tarea. Yo no lavo la ropa, to try and get across the idea that you got your job and that's to get your schoolwork done, and mom and dad or dad take care of washing the laundry. You wish you could say, I don't have the time. No tengo, but you don't want to say time yet. So you go as far as you can. Next question. Hey, dices gracias? And you have to be a little creative here. Of course, it's a very flat kind of a question. Do you say thanks? Well, yeah, I say thanks, or no, I don't say thanks. But try and imagine situations in which you use the word thank you. Say, sí, digo gracias. Mamá prepara el desayuno o la cena, digo gracias. Mamá lava la ropa, yo digo gracias, mamá. Mamá lava los trastes, bueno, digo gracias. Yo voy a la escuela. You wish you could say when I go to school. Cuando voy a la escuela, but you don't know cuando yet. And so just be creative and keep plugging away. And something I didn't mention in the course of the last video is that when you talk, as you're trying to go from point A to point B in your speech, and you talk around the things that you don't know, what's going to happen is that by the time you get to B, your listener will understand you and they'll say, oh, you mean cuando, or they'll throw in the word or the expression that you lack in order to speak more efficiently. And that's how you learn. That's how you pick up vocabulary and develop fluency as other people fill you in on what it is that they can tell you're lacking in your speech. So in any case, for example, I want to say, when I go to school, Mom gives me a ride to school. How do I get that? It gives me a ride. I don't want to say that. How can I get the idea across? Bueno, yo voy a la escuela. Mamá toma el carro. Mamá va a la escuela. Voy con mamá a la escuela. All those words we've dealt with up to this point. You can say all of those things. Y digo gracias a mamá. So you thank her for giving you a ride to school, etc. So you see how we're extending upon the initial question, learning how to speak around the things we don't know, and speaking out loud so that we're practicing our pronunciation as well. So that's it. That's what I'm really focusing on. And I want you to focus on in the final section is speech which you extend over time and you make as lengthy and as complete as you can. Even if it means digressing, even if it means sounding a little bit childish from time to time. That's the way you're going to learn. Okay. Well, that's it. I'll see you next time in lesson 1.28. Adiós. Nos vemos pronto.